As we head into the summer season, Dan really likes wine. We'll be awash with wines we can drink in the warmer weather. And there is no wine South Africans gravitate towards more readily at this time of year than Sauvignon Blanc. And for all the triumphs of Chenin Blanc in particular, but also grapes like Chardonnay, the continued rise of Semillon, the peaking the head above the parapet of a couple of the other grapes, things like Colombard, it is still very much Sauvignon Blanc that rules the roost. And there are a number of reasons for that. There's a familiarity to Sauvignon Blanc. There is an ease of drink. But then there's also the fact that we actually just make it really, really well. And so I have the opportunity to catch up with a number of producers who finished in the FNB top 10 for this year to find out what makes their Sauvignon Blanc quite so good and why their Sauvignon Blanc should be on your list to drink this summer. I'm sitting in one of these suites at the Cape Grace. If you want to know the sheer opulence of them, well, I had to change my watch when I went to the bathroom. That's the size of the place. It has a wonderful homely feel. There's a great staff, and there's also a terrific view out over the V&A waterfront. And if I look very closely, I can just about see the spot where I first caught the magic and the tour de force that is a lady called Janelle, who made me realize A, how much more I needed to learn about wine, and B, how much more time I wanted to spend with her and her wine, because not only is the wine terrific, but she has got such a wonderful way of bringing it to life. Janelle, it's lovely to see you, lovely to have you on the show. Welcome. I'm not sure if you remember that night. We were sitting in a cellar and we were drinking wine, and you just brought it to life so wonderfully.
I remember very clearly. You still had an injured leg, but it was a lot of fun that night. I remember.
It certainly was. It's lovely to have you on the show. It's lovely to be able to catch up with you. I must check, first of all, you were one half of a most dynamic team that does so much for our wine industry, and I know that in the last little while there's been some tough news for the family with Alvi, your extraordinary husband, diagnosed with leukemia. I know it's a battle if anybody is ready to take on. It is certainly Alvi with you by his side, obviously sending him lots of love and strength. How are things going, and is there plenty of wine to help the journey along?
Thank you very much for that. He's doing very well with the treatments. Of course, it's still a long road ahead of us all. From his hospital to you, we're fighting this, and we will come through. He's a lion. I mean, he's a strong man, but at the moment, it's still a long road ahead of us.
Well, know that you have not just the more immediate circle of wine friends, but so many South Africans sending lots of love and lots of strength, and doing so both because, well, that's human nature, but also because you have so many fans in the wine world for the many wines you bring. And what I've always enjoyed about Alvi's Drift is the fact that you make terrific wine, and also I think you must be the worst accountants in the world, because there's no way, Janelle, you can make wine so good and still deliver it at such fantastic prices. Not that I am complaining, but that's been very much at the heart of what Alvi's Drift does, continuing to really, really over deliver and give us such great wine at prices we can't quite believe are real.
This is true, but that is exactly what we stand for, because Alvi is the kind of character that will put everything that he can to whatever he does, and making wine is so deep seated in his passion and heart that he will not do anything unless it's his best. And, getting this award was like proving it again. He's done it again. And it's very rewarding for him to have this, and to know that he's rewarded for his passion and hard work and dedication to whatever he does. Of course, because we're a family business and we can directly offer our produce or our wines to the market. This is why it's a good price. It's a favorable price. There's no middleman, and boy, oh boy, the people consuming our wines there, they are our direct customers. They are part of our family. They're part of the vine extended into the market. And we're very happy to know that people are still enjoying and discovering our wines.
I don't think self-belief has ever been an issue for you, Janelle. You've got a wonderful confidence in who you are and what you do with the wine. That said, when you see your wine sit amongst the kind of company that it does in the F&B top 10, getting this Sauvignon Blanc accolade, that must just, even for you, be a very welcome pat on the shoulder that, you know what, the rest of the world is as aware as we are that what we're doing is something quite special.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's our strive, you know. What can we do better this year? How can we tweak it? How can we change it? So it's every time it's like you exercising for a competition and you come somewhere and you get your medal, and that's very rewarding. I mean, let's face it. And you know, so next year you want to try and always stay there. You want to try and stay close. And as you know, for us with the Sauvignon Blanc, it was something new that he started only 4 years ago, and the very first year he got it, and now again. So it's a great surprise for us. I mean, there's some amazing producers in South Africa. So we're quite happy that Alvi's Drifters climbed up the ladder, and we're also there and say, hi guys, we're here. Our wine's not too bad. Enjoy.
Janelle, you're able to talk about this wine not just because you know it so intimately, but you've got far more wine qualifications than 99% of the planet. When you look at this, when you look at where these grapes come from, how those through the cellar translate into what sits in the glass, what is it for you that makes this wine so good that you feel made the judges sit up and go, hang on, what's this? I kind of like it.
Well, first of all, the selection of the vineyards, the plots that we normally target for the reserve wines are, the soil is, you know, it's a limestone. So we've got the limestone banks as well, where we are situated on a specific farm. These are nice mature vines, you know, they're already on 10 years, going older now. Anyway, when this is selected by hand, obviously all wines, all the grapes that's destined for our bottles will be hand-picked and hand-selected. Now, the thing that Alvi did recently and something new to us was the investment in our foederers. So the foederers are, you know, French Franche-Comté foederers, and they are fermented in the foederers. So the Sauvignon Blanc was fermented also by choice of wild yeast strands. So a very slow fermentation, very taken care of, and these beautiful foederers. And then, of course, the journey continues where we have them in smaller barrels, maturing for another 9 months. So after that, every barrel will be tasted, and, you know, we'll only select the finest for our reserve tanks. I have to also mention that with the production of this wine, there is a co-fermentation that takes place with the Semillon. So the Semillon partner is approximately 10%. You know, but you know, maybe with a new harvest we'll try something new, you know, maybe ferment differently, I don't know. But at this stage, this is what happened to this wine. Very fine grain barrels are selected, blonde toasted, so very lightly toasted for the Sauvignon Blanc. We treat it like a proper lady, very delicate lady, our Sauvignon Blanc.
Well, the results are most evident, not just for me, but for the judges as well. Congratulations on the top 10 slot. And I leave you, Janelle, not just with those congratulations, but also with a promise. You did give me a talking to when I saw you last for not having come to visit you guys. So please tell Alvi, once he's got through this battle, which he is, because he's going to win it comfortably, I'm coming to visit. We're going to open some great wine, and we're going to celebrate one of the great champions of South African wine.
Yeah, we've got lots to celebrate when he pulls through here, and you better come. Thank you very much.
I most certainly will. Janelle van der Merwe, Alvi's Drift, one of our top 10 Sauvignon Blanc finalists, and it's really not hard to see why. As summer sweeps in, it's a big call. What do we drink for summer? For many people, it is Sauvignon Blanc, but even then, that's not quite narrowing it down enough because there is so much great Sauvignon Blanc at the moment. One of the indicators as to what to perhaps get is a winner of an FNB Top 10 Sauvignon Blanc accolade, Why? Well, you've got great judges who understand what they're looking for and can nudge you in the right direction. And you want Sauvignon Blanc, certainly for me, that isn't the kind of acidic Sauvignon Blanc that's ripping the enamel off your teeth, that doesn't have that overt, oh my God, it's so young, so fresh. You want some wine that's certainly got liveliness to it, but it's got a sense of balance. And that's what every one of our top 10 finishers has to them, including the wines of Lomond. And lovely to have you on the show. Congratulations, first of all. I know winemakers are very difficult to get to say anything self-congratulatory about. You're a very self-deprecating lot, and you like passing on all of the congratulations to other people. But it must still feel pretty special when, especially in the kind of company you're in, you get this kind of congratulations.
Yes, no, of course. I mean, in any cellar farm setup, it is a teamwork and it's a team effort. But the most important is basically where we're located. We don't have any neighbors that do farm with grapes as well. So we have very unique terroir, and it shines through in our wines.
Tell me a bit more about that, because you are out at Lomond in a slightly cooler part of South Africa. You have a very specific terroir that is going to influence what you do. It is a joy of South Africa that we have such a wide array of terroir, of winemaking skill, of climate condition. But it can also make it a little bit challenging for the wine drinker to work out, well, what am I drinking? What does this represent? Tell us about Lomond. What influences the Sauvignon Blanc you make, and what governs the style that you so happily give us?
So on the piece of land that we are in, where basically our farm is divided into three. We have a northern part, we have a big dam, and then we have a southern part of the farm. And we're unluckily, depending on if you look at it logistically, we have 18 different soil types on the farm, which allows us to kind of have a very large array of styles and unique characteristics that come through a single cultivar like Sauvignon Blanc. And that allows us to select every year, every season, something special and something that's quite unique to our area. And especially, for instance, our Sugarbush 23, it's our highest located block on the farm, growing on a clay coffee clip kind of soil. If you go to the vineyard, you almost feel like you want to hug the vines and say it's going to be okay, while the cool breeze from the ocean just kind of convinces you to put on a jersey in midsummer. But as the grapes come to the cellar, it is immense excitement to see actually how gorgeous they are. And then following that whole process from press to fermentation to lees aging to bring out that optimum characteristic of that specific terroir.
And it has developed quite magnificently already, but could perhaps do a little more. And it's a question I often ask of our top Sauvignon Blanc producers, of which you are very much one. The aging of Sauvignon Blanc. I do feel, especially for our friends in Johannesburg, that often Sauvignon Blanc is drunk kind of the moment it touches down. But it's not necessarily a wine that you need to drink in its maiden vintage, especially when it's made well, as this is. It is something that can benefit from another 2, 3, sometimes more years to just bring out a little more in the wine.
Yes, we find it especially on our styles of Sauvignon Blanc is the wine kind of loses itself if it's, bottled and released too early. So we find getting that cool climate balance from grape to wine and then giving it another 8 to 9 months on the fine lees just allows the wine to become itself and form its identity when it gets to bottle. And I've kind of tried to make it my own personal mission to convince consumers that a Sauvignon Blanc doesn't need to be consumed in the year it's been produced. Look for your 2 to 3-year-old Sauvignons that come from, well, I know from cool climate and being able to have had the opportunity to work in Elgin as well. The Sauvignons just show so beautifully just a few years after its, harvest date. So it's something that I feel a consumer also can explore. It's like, instead of just having the now and there Sauvignon, look at your little bit of older ages and explore that you would the same with like a Chardonnay as well.
I think that is really, really sage advice. Not to say you can't drink this now, because God, I'm having a lot of fun with it, but it's got the chance to do a little bit more. Thank you so much, and congratulations on being in the top 10. It is very, very well deserved, and I've got a feeling there'll be a lot of this drunk through summer over the course of South Africa. Cheers.
Oh, thank you so much. Cheers.
One of the features of the success of South African wine is iconic brands who have created iconic wines, wines that the world knows, but South Africans in particular have just developed this real affinity for. It might be that you have discovered a Canon Cop Pinotage, and that's become a real South African favourite. A Rupert and Rothschild Classique is another good example. A chocolate block, for instance, from Burkenhoutskloof. When it comes to Sauvignon Blanc, I always get the sense that Iona fits into that space. It sits on a lot of wine lists. It sits on a lot of lists of favourites among South African wine drinkers. And the reason for that, well, I'm sure they've got a pretty good marketing team, but your marketing team can only do so much. The wine needs to deliver on that story. And Werner, welcome to the show. It's lovely to have you on. I think I've had this conversation with Andrew a number of times, that you guys have really just hit on something with this Sauvignon Blanc. It's a bit of a magic formula. It's one that delivers time and time and time again. What is it for you as you construct this wine that says, yep, we know exactly how to get this right, as our FNB top 10 judges have seen?
Geez, Dan, thanks for the kind words. Yeah, I mean, I think what makes Iona special, really, it is cliched sometimes, but it's a special place to grow grapes, and Sauvignon Blanc specifically. So I think from that point, planting the right grapes in the right area makes my work in the cellar a lot easier. But I think the unique site and channeling that into the cellar, and just guiding what we get from the vineyards, the site gives us also year after year consistency. It's the main thing. So it's actually a fantastic place to produce Sauvignon Blanc.
You also have a little touch to this that I know is standard each year. I'm drinking some at the moment. It just so happens it sits in the mini bar at the Cape Grace. So Cape Grace, you're clearly doing something right. And that is the balance you have on the wine. If you look at the label, it says Sauvignon Blanc. But I know over the years, what's just given you a little bit of balance to that wine, what's smoothed it out ever so slightly, given a little bit more weight to the middle of the palate, is some Semillon. It's something that many Sauvignon Blanc producers do. It just completes the wine beautifully, and I think it's something that you've got a real understanding of how to get just right.
Yeah, I think texture plays a real important role in Sauvignon Blanc. I think the criticism about Sauvignon Blanc in the past was maybe acidic or light structured palate weight. But I think Semillon plays a big role in adding a bit of weight and texture to that mid palate. And also something that we do is we have a bit of a barrel ferment component that also adds to that texture and that weight in the mid palate, and just really completes the wine for me personally. I like what the Semillon brings and the barrel components bring, and that just gives another dimension to the Sauvignon Blanc.
It also adds a level to this wine of versatility in terms of what you can do with it. For many South Africans, a Sauvignon Blanc is, we're at the beach, we're beside the pool, there's lots of sunshine. Sauvignon Blanc tends to pair well with a hot day, nice cold wine. But because you've added a little bit more to this, for me, it sits in that food space really well. If you're opening this up beyond just it's a hot day and I want something nice to drink to cool me down that I enjoy, where do you feel your Sauvignon Blanc leans in terms of a food pairing wine?
Sure, it's always a difficult one for me, but I mean Sauvignon Blanc and seafood, it's a match made in heaven. It can't be. I don't think there's things much better than having a Sauvignon Blanc or some crayfish or some scallops. So, what also with our Sauvignon Blanc is that with the texture, the wine is just paired so much better with food. So, I think that's where palate weight really plays a big role for me, is pairing it with food, and having, again, comes to that complexity and that dimension that you bring to the wine specifically.
The capacity for the wine to do that is part of its appeal. It is an enduring appeal. There are people who are buying new vintage, right? Send us our 2, 3, 4, 5 cases. We're laying siege to Norman Goodfellows to get hold of some of it, which means when you've created this cult classic that I feel you have, there's a certain level of expectation. Are you trying to deliver a mirror image with every single vintage? Or is there a degree to which you say, hang on, this year's been a little bit different, ipso facto, the wine's got to be a little bit different?
Yes, definitely, Dan. I mean, we're not producing Coca-Cola, so vintages do differ. So every vintage, we take it as it comes. Not every vintage is the same. 2023 vintage was very different from the 2024 vintage. So every year, you just have to adapt to what nature gives you. So yes, there's differences from vintage to vintage, but I think the DNA or the thread that comes through the wine, that's driven by the site as well. So there is definitely a DNA in the wine, and that's definitely the Iona site that gives you that. But because every vintage is different, there will be slight nuances that might be different as well.
Well, whatever you're doing, you're certainly doing right. The popularity of this wine continues, and not just for those of us who drink it, but with some rather important judges as well, who've placed you in great company. Thank you for continuing to give us a terrific wine. Well done on the accolade of being in the FNB top 10. It's a worthy one indeed, and keep making great wine for us. We certainly enjoy it.
Thank you very much.
Oh, there we go, Werner. And I think what I took from that, he wasn't saying so in quite so many words, but I think what he really meant was, Dan, please come and have a crayfish braai with me. I'd love to give you some good wine. The summer journey of deciding which wine to drink, which Sauvignon Blanc to drink, which is my focus at the moment, is aided a little by being able to talk to some great winemakers and talk to some great winemakers who their peers feel are doing it just right. And in the FNB top 10 for Sauvignon Blanc for this year has been Zevenwacht. When you get an award like this, Hagen, when the fax comes through or the phone call is made, what sort of level of surprise is there? Is it a case of, yep, you know what, this is pretty special, I'll be very, very taken aback if we don't win something? Or is it still a, oh my goodness, I can't believe I've got this?
No, of course, Dan. I think to some extent it's always a bit of a sigh of relief in a sense because of the build-up and the expectation. But for us, we are always very, very thankful to be part of the top 10. And yeah, I think it's a massive achievement for the team and for all the producers who've achieved the result. So definitely excitement about it, and definitely something that we always hold thumbs for. And the build-up and the anticipation does give us a bit of stress.
The Sauvignon Blanc story, I feel, has got two quite distinct sides. There is the mass market for Sauvignon Blanc. It outsells Chenin Blanc 6-7 to 1 as the second most popular grape in South Africa. But for the wine snobs, there's an element where, oh no, you know, Sauvignon Blanc's not complex enough. Sauvignon Blanc's not for us. It's too acidic. It's too rushed. I think that is unfair, just as I think the mass market is sometimes not always giving Sauvignon Blanc the scrutiny it deserves. When we get great Sauvignon Blanc, as yours is, it's an example of a grape done really, really well. What for you is the understanding of getting the style of Sauvignon Blanc right and creating a wine that, yes, certainly satisfies a lot of people's appetite for wine, but also does justice to the potential of the Sauvignon Blanc grape?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I mean, we obviously make a fair amount of Sauvignon. We do around a third of our production is focused on Sauvignon. So we've got 3 different wines that we produce in different styles. And at the end of the day, you know, we're trying to pitch each kind of wine in its own individual style to suit the market. And on the top end for the Z collection is definitely something that I enjoy drinking, is typically something that is a little bit more complex in the sense that it's the selection of our best vineyards, our best vineyard sites. We play around with barrel fermented components primarily, and then also a little bit of concrete ferment, some natural ferment. So just basically building layers of complexity into the wine and just ensuring that the fruit that we select is basically the best selection each year that we can put into the blend. So yeah, I think that just building those layers is important, and then having a good focus on the wine is for me also always an important aspect on the top end when you're trying to make something special.
Delivering that sort of wine is exactly what you've done, or the judges would not have given you such an enthusiastic response. And creating a Sauvignon Blanc that's got a little bit more complexity, is a little bit more layered, has got a little bit more of a story to tell, is the hallmark of one that, for me, certainly has delivered on what I would like from a Sauvignon Blanc. The way, though, to ruin all of your success, and if you burst into tears when I start talking about this, Hagen, I shall understand, because it's a bugbear of mine. I can only imagine what it is like for a winemaker, and it must have happened to you. You go round to a braai, it's a hot summer's day, somebody, oh, here's Hagen, world famous winemaker, let me give him some wine. And they reach into your freezer and they bring out a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc that is now sitting at 3 degrees and has lost any semblance of the fruit and the richness and the authenticity. We need to convince South Africa, make them understand that we don't want warm Sauvignon Blanc, certainly, because that's awful, but freezing it down, getting it to that just above zero, yes, it's nice to see off the heat and to sort out your thirst on a hot day, but you're losing so much of the wine when you serve it too cold.
Yeah, I think definitely, especially on something like a wooded wine as well, where you generally want the wine to open up a little bit more and kind of experience that evolution of flavors that the wine has to offer. And I think even a more cardinal sin is when the ice block goes into the wine on a summer's day. But at the end of the day, I think each to their own. If they're drinking ship truckloads of Sauvignon and they want to put ice in it, keep on going, whatever works.
I'd say with great shame that Ronaldo, my director, drinks his Sauvignon Blanc with Sprite, which just horrifies me, but it means he's buying the stuff, so I suppose he's kind of helping the industry. I love the fact you've mentioned wood, because I wanted to bring that up anyway. It's also something I've seen a bit more over the last few years with South African Sauvignon Blanc, understanding that not whacking it with a big load of first fill and brand new oak is going to help, but with a slightly more subtler portion of oak, there is a new dimension that we can add to Sauvignon Blanc.
Yes, definitely. I think for me, it's also always been just a style that I enjoy drinking. Wooded Sauvignons or wooded wines in general, for me, are where my preference lies, but always on a more restrained side of that. And for us, we're using bigger format, 500, 600 liter barrels, generally lighter toasting. And then I also like using, obviously, a bit of concrete. And that's for me always just where we can kind of temper the oak influence, just to make sure that the balance is right, that you're not ending on anything that's kind of oak tannin or oaky, but that the wine still pulls through with acidity and a fresh finish. I think another factor for me also with that is also aging the wine on a lease. A few people have mentioned it. We keep it on the gross lease for the duration. And I just feel that it almost forms a bit of a protective element in the wine, adds some mid-palate, and just integrates the wine quite nicely with aging on the gross lease as well.
Well, you only have to have a glass of your wine to understand that, which is exactly what the judges did at the F&B Top 10. Hagen, thank you. Your focus on Sauvignon Blanc is clear, your passion for it even more so, and the results it delivers don't just please the judges, makes people like me very happy as well. So thanks for some great wine, and I look forward to many more of it.
Thank you very much, Dan. It's been a pleasure being on the show. Have a good weekend.
Well, armed with some Zevenwacht, I certainly will. A great collection of South African Sauvignon Blanc, and showing just how diverse the grape is, how much fun our winemakers are having with the varietal, and the sheer quality they're delivering in yet another South African wine success story. Cheers.